I think the sooner that people get off the greed horse and realize like more power together, you can go after bigger things together, you cover down on a lot more capability delivery together. Like that is the secret to success.
Thousands of companies show up to sell their technology to the U.S. Department of Defense each year. But so few will transition from proof of concept to true production across the valley of death. The select few who do, their stories are rarely told. Until now, I'm Noah Scheinbaum, and this is Crossing the Valley.
Emma Przybyslawski and Chris Spach are two of my favorite people. They first met over a radio, while Chris was a pilot and Emma was a special operations intelligence officer, identifying the targets that Chris finished. It took them years to reunite in person, but today they are partners in every sense of the word, both as a couple and as the leaders of Strike Solutions, a product engineering firm that is making amazing things happen for the missions of national defense. I got to talk with them about their path to production on some really cool projects, on building a business for the first time, and what it's like to work together with your partner. Let's get after it. All right, everybody. I am so excited to be here with Emma and Chris from Strike Solutions. Emma is the CEO. Chris is the director of operations. And this is one of my favorite companies because talk about doing it your own way. Talk about building the company that you wish you benefited from while in service. And not on the coast. We're not in New York. We're not in California. Based in Nevada. So this is going to be a great conversation. Thank you both for making the time.
Thank you for having us. It's an honor.
Awesome. Emma, let's start with you. Just give us the why behind this company. You both have a background of service, both in the Air Force, a little bit different. We'll parse that out. But what inspired you to start a company?
What a great question. And it's something, as I think all founders would agree, is something you want to revisit often to keep yourself sane. I was passionate about bringing the right team together to produce products that we wish we had while we were serving. And specifically for our team, deep expertise in the tactical signals intelligence space. And as you can imagine, that space it's difficult. It's tough engineering problems. You have to have deep expertise in that domain. And the products very quickly become untenable from an expense standpoint. And so we set about solving that particular challenge space with a different approach and trying to not over-engineer and simplify products and make them much more usable to your average user, not necessarily a signals intelligence expert.
So did you have a background in product, in engineering when you were an Air Force intelligence officer?
No, I've had to learn very quickly. I would say I had the benefit of, I worked in the special operations community as an Air Force intel officer. And by virtue of the teams I was on, the tiers I was with, was exposed to some very unique technologies before innovation was really even a word. And so the exposure I got into the technology industry was what drew me in. The ability to take technology, apply it to the hard problems that we know forward and backward coming from the mission space, just was something I fell in love with and haven't looked back.
And so, Chris, let's bring you in here. How did you get roped into this this entity?
This endeavor?
This endeavor.
Great question. So obviously, Em and I are married. So let that cat out of the bag now, I guess.
Not quite obvious for the audience, but this is another reason why this is such a cool and different. This is a husband-wife ordeal. Yeah. This is a
what could go wrong?
So our story goes way back. We actually met on the battlefield back in 2015. Actually talked to Emma on the radio, and long story short, ended up dropping some targets for her that she had developed for us. And
we should do long story long because this is a really good story.
Yeah, I'll save viewers and everyone else the time. But essentially, we didn't really connect until about 2 or 3 years later due to some friends that finally put us in the room and like, hey, that was this, oh yeah, one of those kind of stories. And then, I was still active duty at the time, made the transition over to active reserve about 4 years ago now. And did that trying to help align. So she had taken a job to try and align to the West Coast. And so we're starting to try to make steps towards, each other in that way, like within our careers as well. And then, she's always been, an entrepreneur, had this like mindset of like wanting to create her own thing and, kind of working through that. So we kind of strategized what that was going to look like for us. And about a year ago, I'd made the jump over to a part-time reserve position, so a traditional reservist now. As far as my background, I come from, operational, combat air forces for a while, about 12 years or so. And then I've spent a lot of time in the operational test and evaluation world. So helping bring tech to the battlefield. And so, this was a unique opportunity to kind of align that as well. And so things were starting to kind of come together with the company, and then took the opportunity to jump over and join the team about a little over a year ago now, a year and a couple of months. So, that's, I guess, our kind of our origin story and kind of how I ended up here on the team. So
it's a beautiful interweaving of two origin stories for the price of one. Which
exactly.
Is super
there
cool.
You go.
Emma, talk us about, so when you got out, you were inspired to do this, you'd had some kind of experience with new novel capabilities and wanted to build something new. What was the first kind of problem you set out to solve, or relationship that kind of brought you in this kind of newfound entrepreneurial capacity?
So candidly, Strike is not my first endeavor. I got the benefit of failing fast on other opportunities, which at the time, are heartbreaking, but have all led to being better, sharper, more effective now at Strike, which I'm deeply thankful for. Originally, I just wanted to, for lack of a better phrase, help the bros and continue to work with my friends and family that were still serving. And so really went after a services play that just didn't scratch the itch, frankly. And so as I learned more about the challenges and the technology voids that existed out in the market, started looking for opportunities to focus more on a productized approach to filling in those gaps. And Strike was born. Serendipitously, the stars aligned with an opportunity to bring on some of the top talent that we have on our team, is the top talent in the industry for what we are doing, for the specific problem that we're solving. They became available. There was an opportunity to take some nascent technology and build upon it. And all of that came together at the right time for us to turn the engine on and start driving.
It's one of the key themes that I think you hear again and again and again, in not just in this ecosystem and in this industry, but really in any kind of business environment, which is that timing matters so much, and you can't really predict it, and you can't necessarily, it's very often serendipitous, but when you get that right, it's probably more powerful than most anything else. So being in the right place and being able to capture that opportunity is pretty unique. You alluded to the talent that's relevant for the problems that you're solving or for the work that you all are doing. How do you characterize that work?
Yeah. So Internet of Things, IoT exploding. By 2030, we're expected to see an overwhelming amount of devices come online. In fact, it equates to 7,620 devices a minute coming online between now and 2030. Those are just the devices.
In the United States or?
Globally.
Globally, okay.
And those are just the devices. If you start to think about the data generation behind these IoT devices that are out in the wild, by next year, we're expecting 80 zettabytes. I didn't even know what a zettabyte is. Yeah.
I've never heard of a zettabyte.
Let me impart some wisdom on you,
yeah.
because I had to learn this as well. So 1 zettabyte is 1 trillion gigabytes.
Wow.
All right. So I'm still like, well, what does that even mean? If we were to stream all 80 zettabytes that are expected to come online by 2025, so in 2 months, using Netflix, it would take 79,400 years to do it. So that's the kind of data we're talking about. I mean, it is just a tidal wave. And the approach that we've taken is that the only way to address that amount of data is at the edge. And so we build hardware and software-based sensor platforms that can sit on the edge and provide you force protection options, situational awareness, targeting options there at the edge, which is the only place that you can actually manage and parse through that data. Mm-hmm. And there is some real inherent value when you start putting those signals together coming off of the IoT devices to know what's going on around you. So
yeah, no, it's a strong thesis. It's a contestable thesis, which every good one should be, right? And it's one that allows you to scale vertically, horizontally, build products. It's very exciting, and certainly the data, the numbers make the case
staggering,
quite bare. So as you all think about building a business, because I think this is part of the conversation I'm excited to have with y'all, you've made choices around building the team, around capital, around kind of pace of growth. Did you guys sit down? Did you write out some principles? Do you have values on a wall somewhere? What governs your decision making?
Yeah. So I chuckle because we've gone through several iterations of that. At one point, we took the Nike rules and changed them to make them fit us. And then we threw them away. And then we redefined. And what we kept coming back to was this concept of continuing to serve from our side of the fence and just delivering value and making that as simplistic as possible. I wish I could say, and I'll hand it over to Chris here in a second, because he's the yin to my yang in that he's much more of a planner, arguably more intentional about things. I have had a good nose for making decisions, and I've gotten away with it for this long. We had a business plan. Like all good plans, it took one punch in the face, and then you had to redo it. So I would say that all attempts that I have personally made in some of the more intentional moves that we've wanted to make have changed, and they should change. And I mean, you alluded to it, cat's out of the bag. We have no venture capital backing us. We are completely bootstrapped, which means we have to be wildly intentional about what money we pursue and when we pursue it. With Chris coming online, he's really covering down on our operations functionality in the house. And I would say that you've provided a lot more rigor to a lot of the planning aspects that are so critical to surviving, like the non-sexy stuff, like ITAR compliance and making sure that you have the right legal reviews done and IP strategy. So this is a long-winded way of saying, yes, we had a plan. We've had to adjust it quite a bit. We tried to follow our nose and provide and add some rigor to those processes along the way. But there's always room for improvement. But I don't know if you have anything you want to add from.
I don't know if we ever actually documented this strategy, but it kind of came out in execution with an unconventional approach. So customer funded, right? Emma talks about being bootstrapped. I like to say we're bootstrapped with the fur. Shout out to Marcus on that one. But we went after, taking our product to market and then building a very bespoke team to come in and help enable that. And so we looked for people with, multiple skill sets that kind of spanned across different domains. We've got data scientists that do programming and programmers that are doing data science work or front end and back end. Like everybody's kind of, covering down on a lot of different roles that you'd probably find like specialists in with bigger companies. I think that's a unique advantage for us. And what's really cool about that too is because we've gone about that approach, we've also been able to slowly build some momentum with some of these long burn items, right? Like when you start talking about going after contracts and RFPs and that process, it takes a long time for those things to catch fire. And I think that's where a lot of companies struggle is if that's your initial strategy, like you just want to be a defense tech company, you want to come out and go after that. That's not something that happens overnight. And so unless you have that funding in the backside to keep your lights on while you pursue those endeavors, it's really tough. We were fortunate to have a really cool piece of kit and people wanted it. And we've iterated on it, over the last 2 years and have really polished that thing into a really unique piece of technology and a product now that is doing very well for us. And that enabled us to sustain that kind of approach. And so we kind of jokingly say we're customer funded. And so our customers really matter to us. And we try to do everything we can to try and make them happy and deliver the best product that we possibly can.
That's a pretty good way to be funded, which is via revenue, right? We forget that sometimes. Let's talk about that product or the products that you all have actually developed. And I know, you alluded to IoT and to some of the sensor fusion work you're doing. So talk us through kind of the flagship product that you're able to talk about today.
Would be thrilled to. Our flagship product is called Thunderdome, and it is a sensor fusion platform. It is meant to operate, obviously, at the edge. What is unique about what we're doing with Thunderdome is that it is multi-modular, multi-form factor. So
what does that mean for us lay people?
You can make it look like it belongs in a Pelican case, or you can make it look like it belongs in a room and nobody will notice it. So we have a ton of leeway when it comes to understanding our customer requirement and then fitting what it looks like to that concept of operations or to that use case. So that's one piece of it. Where we're focused is using software-defined radios to pull in the spectrum at the edge around the device and correlating across those spectrum signals. When it gets really interesting is when we bring in video feed and we are able to do facial recognition, license plate recognition at the edge and pair signals with what that camera is seeing. So we are deeply embedded in use cases that involve understanding what humans are doing and what vehicles are doing, especially from an identification standpoint.
Super cool.
Yeah.
When you, in terms of the tactics of how you got to the point where you could take something and productize it, did this start as services or was this product day one?
Product day one.
Really?
It was.
And was it through relationships that you had, open RFPs, SBIR? What was kind of the on-ramp process?
Yeah. So relationships for sure. So when we started Strike, I would say the concept of Thunderdome was very low TRL. And it was a concept that had been spoken about in some customer circles. But when we turned the engine on to Strike and really started driving, we put a ton of work into making sure that that was field ready. And we probably spent the first 3 to 4 months of very heavy IRAD, just getting to a point where we were good to go and get that out in the field. And those same customers that had been interested in the concept came back and said, not only is that concept cool, we've tested it out and we love it. And we want more of it. And it's just really grown from there.
So when you're using IRAD in this context, and this is to help everyone be super precise with language, are we talking about government reimbursable research and development, or you're talking about your money?
Strike money.
Strike money. So this is Chris and Emma money.
This is Chris and Emma money. And we have a couple minority positions in the company that helped with an initial investment. So it wasn't just us, and we're eternally grateful to them, but it was Strike money, which is a gamble.
How did that feel, especially from, Chris coming in with the kind of that more operations background?
Sure. I mean, nerve-wracking. I mean, and we've definitely had the conversations about like trying to pursue, is it time? Does it make sense to go after VC money? Like, having that in the bank would be really nice, not having that in the bank has made us be very intentional about everything that we do. Everything from our R&D, right? Before we spend time, energy, and resources, like personal, time and energy into that development of a product or of a concept that may not be of interest to anyone else, we have to come back and make a tough decision to say no to some of those types of requirements. We try not to. We try to say yes and like if we can, give me a minute and let me get back to you on that, or like let's put that in the backlog and we can readdress that maybe when we're doing a next update on our software or something. But we've had to be very meticulous about when and what features we bring in and don't bring in and how we do that development. And, our director of engineering has been fantastic with that. And Max, he's our director of special projects. And he is, the two of those guys have done an incredible job of kind of filtering through that and going, okay, that's a cool idea. I don't know if that's a business product, or is that something we can turn into a business? So they do a great job of kind of filtering that and then taking those inputs. And when it makes sense to do something, they'll action on that and they'll get the team involved with it. But their ability to kind of filter through that stuff is pretty incredible. It's made us be very, very, careful about who we bring on the team and who we hire because we just don't have the bandwidth, unlimited resources to go and just hire really quick. So we're still a small, scrappy team. And it's pretty great. I mean, we still have, great interaction with everybody on the team and everyone knows what everybody's capes and limitations are. And so we can, balance that out. Like, hey, we know he's better at UI or UX, or he's better at back end or front end. Like the team knows how to leverage that. And Jay does a great job of leaning into those capabilities amongst the team. It's pretty incredible to watch and see how that is orchestrated, at Strike.
Yeah, it's cool to. I mean, both the product and the company. The company is a product in some sense, right? You're building an organization. It's
you nailed it
of doing these things. So.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Because the phone calls we get about random things that have nothing to do with Thunderdome are overwhelming sometimes. But I mean, we take a lot of pride in that and carry our reputation very, very seriously.
Yeah. So, talk us through the Thunderdome story. So where is this in the TRL, IRL, kind of all of the readiness stuff? Is this being used at scale by customers today?
It is. It's TRL 9. It is out in the field. It is out in places that you see on the news. And it is, we're out here. We're out here, which is cool. Our development team is always making tweaks to fine tune. But largely that system is ready to go and being shipped.
And that's a big deal because you guys started the company 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So to ship software, to deploy software, and have it being used in battlefield environments, I mean, that's a really big deal. What were some of the things that you all, like from a test and evaluation perspective, from a accreditation perspective, how did you guys speed run that process in this kind of short time?
Jay Bougie and Max Goldwasser. So Jay Bougie is our director of engineering. Chris mentioned him. Jay is an expert in the signals that we are talking about. He's incredible. Max is his evil sidekick that just fills in all the gaps that Jay has. They're just a great pair, dynamic duo. They went out and really got in front of as many diverse customers as possible to just get the system out there, learn what was going well, learn what was going poorly, learn about new applications that needed to be developed based on the sensor fusion we were doing and the data we were touching, and have truly made our team just the most competent in the data sets that we're talking about. And with that, and taking down customers at DHS, customers in the DoD, customers in the IC, they started to get a really well-rounded perspective of what needed to be fixed and what was going well. And when you wrote about that in TE events, so we participated in some of the SOCON TE events, we knew what needed to be fixed. We had the answers to the test before we walked into an actual TE event because we were able to gather all that feedback from different use cases across our customer and relationship base. So I would say we didn't cheat the system, but we took an approach where we ran in parallel with how do we get this out there as fast as possible so we can learn what needs to be changed, and also set ourselves up for okay, now we're getting tested. This actually matters and we can't fail here. And timing those is difficult.
Yeah.
Because you don't want one to happen before the other. So that's really how we did it.
Yeah, sorry. I didn't mean to step on you there. You were doing this all not with venture capital and not necessarily, did you have a contract in hand for any of the exploration or development of this product? Some of it.
Some. I would say most of it.
Okay.
We have always, but what I bragged about at the beginning of this podcast is that we are building our products for cheaper than you would see in a more over-engineered, typical defense industrial-based product. So it's not like selling a Thunderdome is keeping the lights on because the pricing is strategically set in a place where there's an appetite for the price point we're at. And so between Thunderdome sales for some of those concept tests, as well as a couple of nascent contracts that helped us with the development, that's kind of how we cobbled it together, which is literally our theme is cobbling things together. Yeah.
No, I love it. The scrappy startup is
real.
That's kind of the ethos, right? So you said selling Thunderdome isn't necessarily keeping the lights on. What do you see as kind of the full potential for this product? Where are you going with this specific product line? At
this point, it is scaling.
Now it is, yeah.
Now it's a volume play. And we're seeing customers, it's all about creating FOMO in this space, right? Fear of missing out. And so when we go to one customer and we go, hey, we just came from Fort Liberty and let me tell you about what they're doing with our stuff down there, it creates this really interesting chain of events where people start coming out of the woodwork and going, oh, I got to have that too. And so we're very much in the FOMO creation stage where we've done great work. We have amazing customer feedback. And now we're just trying to capitalize on that and smartly grow the business without going too heavy in the paint. And then you're in a position where what if your supply chain falls apart? Volume play is where it's at, but what is that right mix of how many is too many?
Yeah.
How many Thunderdomes is going to break us? So that's kind of the current state I think we're in, is trying to understand where that point is.
Interesting.
Yeah. And we sell hardware. So that is a cash flow intensive business. And so that's always something that we're looking at is how much cash are we going to have to outlay to satisfy this order? And so long story long, it's a volume play at this point. Thunderdome's baked and out there.
We've seen what's nice is the product's become mature enough and it's starting to get enough hands. People are using it and they're liking their experience with it. And so we're starting to see more business generated from word of mouth and referrals, where we were kind of having to do a little more knocking and trying to go, open doors. And now we're getting phone calls and, hey, heard about you guys, got your number from this guy. And so that's starting to kind of build some momentum as well, which is pretty amazing. Because again, it's a testament to the product. It's doing well in the hands of the consumer, the customer there. And so now they're starting to help do our own BD for us, which is really nice.
It's a sign of a good fit, right?
Hopefully. Yeah.
How have you scaled the team to meet this demand? Do you have a kind of a success function now, a deployment function, or is it?
We do. And I'm glad. Okay, we're on the right track then. I'm glad you brought it up.
I don't know that that's the right thing to do. I'm just asking the questions.
You're totally leading the witness here. Yes. So we have a mission solutions function that, I mean, candidly, we stood it up last year and we weren't ready for it yet. We didn't have as many customers and the right alignment of like what customers needed from us from a touch point standpoint, and like how regular does that need to be?
That
how
timing
intense?
thing again, yeah.
Timing thing. And we screwed that up because we started it too early. Now we are in a place where Mission Solutions is getting quite a bit of juice put behind it. We recently hired another core member of our team, Jay Everett. He's known as the godfather of sensitive activities. And
inside the company or inside the government?
In the community.
Okay.
And he is that. He is an operational subject matter expert. And so he's really helping stand up and mature what we think mission solutions should be, which is similar to like a field service rep model. Mm-hmm. So how do you not only get Thunderdome in the wild, teach people how to use it, but make sure it's getting service the way it needs to so that it continues to provide value.
Yeah. What percentage of your revenue at this point? Do you guys charge for like services and products separately?
We do.
You do. And so what's the split between?
We're at about a 70-30 split. So
products.
70% product, 30% in the mission solutions domain.
That's great.
Yeah.
And that's like the install of the software, or that's separate, that's like different work?
Install of software happens when the product is delivered, the hardware is delivered. We can also deploy software to any device. So the software is separate. It's more training people how to use it. We do ConOp development. So if some customers need help thinking about how to do the tech integration piece of, I've got all these tools, how do I make them work together? We do a lot of tech integration services. Yep. And then we do quite a bit of training in the ubiquitous technical surveillance, or UTS space.
Interesting. I want to talk about the integration piece for a minute, because I think this is one where even over the last few years, the narrative has kind of shifted a little bit from an Air Force and a government that was focused so much on more money to more small businesses to create more top of funnel things, like more experiments. And I think there's now this recognition that, okay, maybe we've had some success with SBIR. We make 3,000 of these awards a year. Well, but wait a minute, 93% of them never go anywhere.
Right.
And so how are we now starting to think as a government, as a country, around actually success is not just like jobs program for small business or like innovation top of funnel, but it's actually, can we get capability to a place where it meaningfully changes how an operation occurs? And so I think that services in a product company for a long time was kind of like a dirty word. And there were these companies that were like, we're going to do government SaaS, or we're going to do, we're just going to sell product and then we're going to get some big exit. And it seems to me that the pendulum is swinging back in the other direction now, where a product-led company is great, but services-led product development is actually a totally reasonable, smart, and maybe even desirable kind of path. And so I'm kind of curious how you all see that. Is that where you want to be? Is 70-30 kind of the right split, or are we trying to move it in one direction or another?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think it's complementary, right? I mean, we want to build the product. The things that we've spun out of that, based on all of our insights from that technology and developing out, has created SMEs at our company that are now able to take that and put it on the road and show people how to use it, not just use it, but how to defeat it as well, right? Like, how do you counter this capability in an environment? We start talking about smart cities around the world, like you want to operate in those types of spaces. Like, that is not an easy problem to solve. Yeah. And we definitely don't solve that entire problem, but we do have some expertise in some very unique portions of that puzzle. So I think right now it's pretty complementary. I don't know what the perfect balance looks like. I mean, it's comfortable, I would say, at this point. We want to grow that. Maybe we see that closer to like a 50-50 or a 60-40. Maybe I don't have a good answer to that just like right now, but I could see us starting to do more, like Emma said earlier, like with bringing on some extra talent to help out in that space. We're starting to automatically kind of grow that now anyway. Sure. And Thunderdome has gotten fairly mature over the last year, and we're in a good place where we're kind of, I wouldn't say hitting a sustainment on it, like we're not going to do anything else with it, but we're in a pretty comfortable place with that now, where we can start pivoting to other product lines within the company that we can start focusing on developing those up, I guess, or building those up.
I think we'll always be majority product, because our talent pool is so well aligned to like deliver something.
Yeah.
But you cannot ignore the fact that you got to figure out how you're going to get your thing into the overarching ConOp. Otherwise, nobody is going to use it. So we have been just relentless. And this is one thing I learned early, and I'm so fortunate that I did. It is critical, not only the tech integration piece, but the transition. Tech transition is difficult. And you have to kind of wave your hands around a crystal ball and figure out where you want something to land in 2 to 3 years and start working that while you're in concept phase.
Yeah.
It's insane. But like, you have to do that. Otherwise you're going to die. You're not going to make it across the valley. And that's incredibly services led, right? So I don't think you can have one without the other, to your point. I think you nailed it.
So what does transition look like for Thunderdome? Is it program of record? Is it multi-year recurring revenue? Is it a lot of, kind of onesie, like individual contracts with different entities?
I can see, we are on the path and working towards making Thunderdome a program of record. In the meantime, we will have several different contracts, and they all include recurring revenue through the software maintenance piece. So all of the above.
All the above.
Yeah.
So just to the extent that you're willing and able to share, what does working towards program of record look like for you guys?
Yeah, that's a great question. So without giving away like the keys to the castle.
Don't tell us how to sell this specific product to your specific customer.
You are boarding the FOMO train and staying on it for the 2 years that it takes. And what that means is consistently, the government doesn't talk. I think everybody here knows this. And so getting the right people to start talking to each other about, hey, look, I have this end user that is way down in the tactical depths of some TSOC that loves what we're doing. And then going to the PEO somewhere in Tampa and going, hey, you should probably know about like what's going on because they're telling all their friends and I don't want you to hear it from someone else. And so just slowly inching your way towards building that, like, do you remember in grade school when we got strips of paper and you would glue them together and you'd make those chain links? You're literally building that. We have come full circle. We're back in kindergarten and we are building chain links of just getting people to talk.
Yeah.
And so I'm not being very articulate, but what I mean is like, you have to do that communication piece, lay that flat, make sure you're getting the right people to talk at the right time. But at the same time, you need to be going after as many contracts as you possibly can. And so using those as kind of big lily pads to help you along that communications path is my best guess. Now, in 2 years, we'll be back on this podcast and I'll let you know how it's going.
All right. That's a promise, right? That's a commitment. You heard it here first. Okay. So if Thunderdome is your capability that is mature and it's fighting through you've got traction and you're fighting to instantiate this in a way where we can think a bit less about, all right, where's the next contract coming from, right?
Yep.
Which is landing that in some sort of program. Tell us about a newer capability that might be more on the starting block, because I'm super keen to understand how you all, you're sort of a product studio of sorts, right? How does a nascent product idea kind of come about?
Our newest product that we've come out with is called Prism. And that came, again, like I kind of spoke on this earlier about, the customer requirements, right? And we try to make customer-informed decisions before we act on that. And this purely came from that. Based on previous relationships and some of the successes we've seen with Thunderdome, essentially got asked, hey, could you or can you, or what do you think about this? And the guys basically took that idea, went back to the lab and were like, okay, let's think on this and see what we can do. And then about 2 weeks, I think is what it was, from the time like the question was asked until like we delivered the first product. So within that time frame went through like an initial concept. Now the first deployment was a headless unit, if you will, right? A little bit, I guess, less Gucci, if you will. And then in the meantime, we're already on like the third release of that, or we're working on that now to try and get that product up quickly and a little more polished. But it was all customer fed, right? It was coming from a customer requirement asking us to go do that. And it was on us to make a decision internally. Like, does this make sense? Like, do we think we could scale this? Is there a business behind this, product? And we think there is. And so watching kind of like that go from an idea to like a product out the door in a very, very quick time frame, where we were actually like, oh, we got to do a little bit of work here and figure out like where are some other places we can go with this and try to develop that out. And so now we've got a product that has done well. We've already started selling, and now we're like, what else can we do? I feel like we've got, like, I've heard Garrett say this a couple of times, like lightning in a bottle with this one. And where can we go with this?
And Prism is it's nothing insane. It's packet capture so that you can understand what your IoT devices are doing from a behavior characterization standpoint. And I'm here to tell you the new customers that we have brought online and that are using Prism actively have within minutes realized that they had a compromise in their tech stack.
Wow.
And so being able to help them identify that and then mitigate it obviously is critical to national security, but it has so many implications across, again, the IoT space is enabling manufacturing, energy. I mean, pharma, force protection or security for like distributed locations. It affects so many things. And so the world is kind of our oyster from a lightning in a bottle standpoint with Prism. It's new and TBD. In 2 years, we'll let you know where we're at. And if we cashed in on all the things that it is relevant to. So
I love it. Yeah.
I was going to say, we've had it for about 2-ish months or so.
Yep.
Maybe 3.
Oh, wow. This is brand new. It's hot off the presses.
Hot off the press.
Hello, world.
You heard it here first.
Yeah. So it's very, very new.
From a customer acquisition standpoint, when you're getting the opportunity to bid on some of these things or develop these products, how much of your business is outbound versus inbound at this point?
Oh, a lot of it is inbound.
A lot of people coming to you.
It is. Yeah. A lot of it is inbound, and it's from word of mouth, and it's from somebody who knew somebody. It's very relationship heavy, which burns out at some point. It doesn't last forever.
Or the question is, if you're a founder, an aspiring founder who wants to build this industry, and they're looking at it and they're saying, man, I got no shot because I don't know people kind of in that space. How do you proxy for that? How do you build that kind of trust that you all have with these? It sounds like
you partner. And that is to put a finer point on like the thesis of Strike. We work with so many amazing partners that fill in things, capability gaps that we don't. And I think the sooner that people get off the greed horse and realize like more power together, you can go after bigger things together. You cover down on a lot more capability delivery together. Like that is the secret to success. And those that think they can do it alone, good luck. Because the government is horrific at buying point solutions. They are only good at buying capability and articulating capability. I think you can either provide that solution for them, or you can let them try and cobble it and stitch it together themselves. And I think that there is better talent on the industry side to be able to smartly put those partnerships together first and take those to the customer. So I say find partners.
I think another part too, to kind of one step further on that, is interoperability. Government doesn't like vendor locked solutions. And so we've always tried to lead our product to be easily plug and play. I mean, we can take software, deploy it onto existing hardware. If a customer already has like an infrastructure in place that they want to leverage, like cool, but they want what we provide in our software, we can easily do that. We've led all of our development with that in mind. We want to be able to easily take that and move it to the edge, to wherever it needs to go, and then be able to bring in additional capability. So if there is a problem that gets addressed, like, hey, could you do X? No, but we could maybe go over here and talk to these guys. We know they can do this really well. And then we can bring that into a discussion. Now we can provide a holistic solution back to the customer. And so that interoperability is huge. And as soon as you try to go down like some bespoke vendor lock solution, like it usually starts, kind of becoming a point of contention a little bit.
Totally. I mean, I also just appreciate, I think, your view of the ecosystem and wanting to support other kind of small businesses and just kind of like work with other good people in the space is awesome. What's the vision for Strike? Like, what do you all want to be when you grow up?
Well, we're never going to grow up.
Peter Pan.
I'm working very hard to stay young. We want to build the best company that we can. We want to continue to offer one of the best places to work in the market with the right people that you have to earn your way onto our team because we will only work with you for the best. And I want to provide that environment for as long as possible because our customers need it. They are looking for people like us in our community and those that are like us that have the same approach to work with. And so I don't know what's going to happen or where the star. I'm just along for the ride. I think you picked up on that, but where the stars will align will be really interesting. We have an interesting few years coming up from a national security standpoint. We definitely want to see through making sure that our country comes out on top, whatever that looks like. So I would say we're here and we're digging in.
You got anything to add, Chris?
Not after that. We're digging in. I love it.
We're digging in.
Yeah, we're digging in. I like that a lot. Cool. As you look at the ecosystem writ large and the other companies that are coming up behind you, the others that you're now seeing in the market, maybe that weren't there 3, 4, 5 years ago, what do you think is like what's exciting and what's concerning?
I'll lead with what's concerning.
Okay.
This is simply because of, I think, our situation. So we are not backed. I wonder why and where some of this capital is getting deployed and for what purpose. Like, what is the objective and what are these companies getting after? Because if you're getting backed by some of the figures that I see thrown around, that's an incredibly powerful tool to have at your disposal. Yeah. What are you going to do with it? And how are you going to go and benefit our ecosystem collectively, not just your own company? How are you going to make the ecosystem better? Because all ships rise, right? And so that part is really tough being a non-backed company. There are often times when I feel like we get overlooked because we are not in those circles. And I think it's really important that the ecosystem remain thriving. And I just don't know how, you know a lot more about this than I do, Noah. I just don't know how a lot of the plays and the big bets that are being made benefit what we actually need to get after as a country. So that's concerning. It might be because I'm uneducated, because I have not been through the VC path, but that's just my perspective. What is really exciting is the amount of just amazing brain power going into really hard problems every single day. So like the deep tech space, man, like quantum in and of itself, which I barely made it through physics in college, so I should not even be speaking or saying that word out loud. But like what is happening in some of these spaces like quantum is amazing. And like we're turning some major corners, and it's unexpected people that are doing it that have this opportunity to get after some of this stuff. And that is just, it's inspiring to be part of a humble part of like the community that's like actually trying to solve these problems.
Yeah. No, I agree wholeheartedly. Chris, you got?
I think it's interesting to see kind of the, what's the word I'm looking for? Like the reemergence, or like, I guess like people coming back and focusing again on supporting defense. You know, we saw coming out of, looking at old history, right? Like out of World War II, like if you wanted to do cool R&D, you had to be in the government to do it, right? If you want to build nukes, you had to be in the government. And then like we saw a huge, split where industry kind of went off on their own way, government went their way, and whatever, right? Things kind of stagnated after a desert storm, and we've kind of been sitting pretty still for a while now. And now all of a sudden, in the meantime, like our adversaries have recognized like the curb stomping that we did in Iraq, the fourth largest army in the world, right? Rolled over the top of them pretty quick. Well, that scared everyone else. And they've been building their arms over the last decades, right? Trying to get caught up, realizing like, there's near parity there, and like, or realizing there was severe overmatch. And now they're trying to catch that up. And now seeing like in the defense sector, the recognition of like, we got to do something quick, and leaning back into industry to help do that. Because there's a lot of really smart people out there doing a lot of really cool things. And I think it's really unique and interesting to see government trying to leverage some of those capabilities and bring it back and trying to merge those two worlds, right? Bringing DoD back to that industrial base and bringing it back to like providing cool tech solutions. So the things I'm excited about is like what's going to be next, right? I mean, we got ChatGPT, we got, generative AI, we got all this cool stuff happening out in the commercial sector. Where's the application for that on the government side, right? Some concerns, I think, maybe like bringing the wrong people in for the wrong reasons. Like this is a hard business, right? And it doesn't happen quick. It's not easy. And so like having the right people that want to be in the trenches with you on like the defense tech side is really important, right? Like finding those people that you want to partner with, because there's probably some good apples and there's some bad apples, right? And like the bigger the pool, there's more, of both. So trying to navigate those waters and stay clear of the bad apples, and partnering with the good ones and all that. But overall, I think it's a good thing. Like, seeing this growth.
Yeah, it is inspiring to see, I think, just the number of people who are giving this industry another look. And part of our mission, I think, is to make it accessible to them and make it so that they can come in, and whether they're founding a company or operating in a company or investing in companies, that they can, or joining, the military and the government, that they can impact the mission positively and see themselves in it. So I think what you all are doing is definitely it's opening another avenue for folks who might not otherwise kind of give it a shot.
The painful route.
Hard is hard. And I really respect what you guys are doing. I think it's just exciting to see another example of how a company can be built and built in a way that's, a team that is also a life team and a professional team. And everything you guys are doing is unique and fun and enlightening.
Can I ask you a question?
That's not how this works.
Yeah.
We're going on the offensive.
I'm taking over. Okay.
We got about a minute left.
What are your concerns?
About the industry?
Yep. You talk to so many companies.
My biggest fear is that
we will lose our patience before we achieve the mission.
Heard.
And there's no one mission. There's no end date. I mean, you articulate, you said, we're here, we're digging in, we've got to survive this next fight. Honestly, I don't know if the next fight, I mean, I think it's China, but might not be.
May not be.
You know, it might be. It might be something totally different, and it might be kinetic, or it might be something totally different. And I think this industry, the kind of renaissance of this industry right now, and the excitement on, I get to travel to college campuses and do the kind of the job side of things, and seeing the energy and excitement and enthusiasm around building for companies and in industries that positively impact our national security, like. We can't squander that. We can't put ourselves in a position where we go through another 15-year cycle of people not wanting to touch defense and security because we don't have that time. We can't lose a generation of talent. And I do wonder sometimes about the commercial outcomes that will enable us to continue to attract that talent. But I'm optimistic. I think, there's a lot of great folks showing different ways of doing this. Not every venture-backed company is going to be successful. Not every venture-backed company is meant to be successful. So I think we're in a good place overall. But can't have too much of a good thing. We still need to keep the fight on and keep the pressure on to continue to innovate and attract more folks to the space.
Well put. Thank you for entertaining my question.
I don't know. We're cutting this. No, this is great. You guys are awesome. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for what you're doing. If folks want to learn more about Strike, where can they follow you? Where should they go?
Absolutely. Emma, crazy last name, Przybyslawski. Just type in PRZ. I'll be the only one that pops up at Strike Solutions on LinkedIn. And our website is strikesolutions.io and has a good way to get in touch with us. And Chris is Chris Spach, SPACH.
Also on LinkedIn.
Also on LinkedIn.
Yeah. LinkedIn is the best way to get us, probably.
Yeah.
LinkedIn.
Through the website or LinkedIn. Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, we're gonna be watching. We're gonna be rooting for you. If you've accomplished this much in 2 years, I'm excited for what the next 6 months will bring.
Who knows what's gonna happen?
It's gonna be awesome. We're here for the journey. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.